Welcome back. We're here with Jeff Blixt, and during the break Jeff was talking about making sure that you remove the hoses from your exterior faucets. You're saying that that can cause problems.
Even on a frost-free faucet, it'll freeze up. So.
And for more maintenance tips, you can go to realtalktwincities.com. Cheryl has been so kind as to post a whole host of home maintenance tips. Isn't that right, Cheryl?
Yes, indoor and exterior maintenance tips from Inspecta Homes. And you can reach Jeff Blixt through our website, realtalktwincities.com, or through his website, inspectahomes.com. And Jeff, remind everybody what your phone number is.
It is 651-641-0641. Again, 651-641-0641.
So folks have radar.
Radar,
They should-
radon,
They're speeding on 35W.
With their radon.
which can be dangerous.
Right. Radon concerns, they can give you a call. Even maybe a seller might even want to do kind of a pre-inspection. I mean, certainly a buyer. You mentioned some of the health consequences of radon, lung cancer. So it's a pretty serious thing.
Absolutely.
And
definitely something we should be paying attention to. And
yep.
the upside of all of that is that even with high levels, the cost for mitigation in comparison to the cost of the home is really pretty minimal. I mean,
Okay.
you're talking, I had ranges starting maybe as low as $700. I did have a couple that were up over $5,000 or $6,000, but those were really an anomaly. It was a very large home with multiple levels and so forth that they had to treat, or multiple suction points for that mitigation system. So the average that I'm hearing is somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500. So it's really not that much money to ensure that you have a healthy environment to have your family live in.
Okay, so somewhere around 1,200 to 1,500 to mitigate the radon. You mentioned high levels. What are high levels? What's the scale and what's the zone?
The measurement is taken in picocuries per liter.
Okay.
And if you remember, picocuries comes from Madame Curie,
Right.
who died of radiation poisoning, was a leader in radiation, I guess.
Invented the X-ray, I think.
Yeah, and so that's where that measurement comes from. And currently our standard that we've set here by the EPA is 4.0 picocuries per liter. Anything at that level or above falls into the level that they would encourage you to do mitigation. And I think, Cheryl, for real estate transactions, isn't that kind of the magic number that everybody goes by?
Absolutely,
Yes.
that's what we're looking for. And I've seen readings in the 9, 10, 12 range on some of the homes that I've been selling. What's the highest you've seen?
Oh, I know we've had several that have been over 100. So
wow.
I mean, it's
That's
They
amazing.
have to get that
Yeah,
mitigated.
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, the other thing that's important is understanding how that radon monitor is placed, and to make sure that the house conditions are followed properly, and the placement of that radon monitor is proper as well. And I hear back from a lot of agents when I'm teaching these classes about other testers that come in and do things they shouldn't do, like shut off the air-to-air exchanger or unplug a dehumidifier, things that really have no bearing on that test whatsoever. So it's important to have somebody that really understands what they're doing with it and why they're doing it.
Yeah, that brings up a great point. I had a seller that had an air-to-air exchanger, and the buyer's inspector insisted that that be turned off. And I thought that seemed really odd, because an air-to-air exchanger should help remove some radon.
Well, and you're right. It's actually, if you look down a list of different mitigation techniques, and an air-to-air exchanger is really on the very, very bottom. If you had a very lower level of radon, it might help mitigate it to a certain degree, but it doesn't take the place of a full-blown mitigation system. And I think where they might use an air-to-air exchanger for that purpose might be in a home like maybe something we have where we have a larger home, I think a Summit Avenue, where we have some of those homes that have the wood floors in the basement. They're really set over sleepers, which is nothing more than 2x4s over aggregate or gravel, and then they put a wood floor down, and part of that mitigation system works on suction, and if you can't seal that area up, you can't create suction. So a typical mitigation system installed in a basement like that would really not do anything. and there you might use an air-to-air exchanger. But no, you should, the idea behind the testing is that you test in lived-in conditions. And so if that air-to-air exchanger is part of the way that the home is operated, it needs to be left on.
So you can get the seller potentially to pay for this mitigation, is that right?
Well, that's what we
Yes.
always strive for.
Yes.
Okay, and
Okay.
that brings up another point. I bought a duplex that was as is back in '08 for $35,000, and my agent at the time said, you don't need an inspection, and I kind of agreed. Well, I know it's going to need 50, 60 grand, but what I discovered later was I wish I would have gotten one, because I would have known that the furnace was shot and a couple of other things, so I potentially could have beat up on the seller
Right.
for some more, or I could have gotten a bigger, I got a construction loan for it. So I think that there's really no case where you wouldn't want an inspection, right? I
You
mean,
know, while we never tell people that we're gonna find every single thing out there, in fact, that's one of the downfalls of my industry, is that it's impossible to catch everything when you're out there. I don't care how
well,
long
you'd
the
catch a furnace though, for example.
You would hope so.
Right.
And a lot of times what we're looking for are indicators. Like with a furnace, we can't see the heat exchanger. And a typical home inspector doesn't really have any way of testing it. But there's things that we would pick up on, such as
Right.
flame pattern, rust, corrosion, age,
Right.
that would tell us, okay, now, rather than a generalist, which is really what we are, we're not experts in any one area. We have a little bit of knowledge in all areas. Now we're going to say, okay, based on what I'm seeing, I'm recommending that you have a licensed heating
Right.
contractor, someone who is a specialist in that area, come in and go through it.
Okay, well, Jeff, I just really want to thank you for joining us here today, and I highly recommend you as our local expert, and I've used you many times, and you can reach Jeff through inspectahomes.com. And your phone number once again?
Again, that's 651-641-0641, 651-641-0641. And thank you very much for having me on today.
Yes,
It's been a
thank
Thank you,
pleasure.
Great
Jeff.
info.
Thanks very much. RealTalkTwinCities.com, all things real estate and mortgage. This week's mortgage rates on a national average are up to 4.12. That's according to Bankrate.com. And that's a change, up from 4.08 last week. So mortgage rates have ticked up a little bit, but they're still historically low. Some other interesting news, the infamous good faith estimate that has gone through various iterations recently and the truth in lending form are going away starting next
Wow.
year.
Yay.
Yes. So, and actually this time around, the government has provided us with some easy to understand forms that combine the two. I'm looking at a copy of them right now. We won't see these until the middle of next year. However, I can tell you that the new loan estimate and closing disclosure are pretty straightforward, given your rates, your payments, no ambiguity. So home buyers have that to look forward to, along with hopefully continuing low rates. And if you're wondering if it makes sense to refinance right now, or what your rent versus own, anything mortgage, you need a mortgage checkup, you can go to erictheloanguy.com or give me a call at 952-905-5757. Every week we're here on Sunday nights. We'll be back next week, right, Cheryl?